Good evening. My name is Joe Bandel, and I am the last Rosicrucian. Tonight, we're going to continue with the subject that we started last time about being bigger than the stick. Once I outgrew the stick, I was no longer a child, and I became a youth. For the first time, I became aware of myself, had self-awareness. I became aware of thoughts and ideas. Before, I was just emotions, a bundle of emotions. As a child, I only participated in the world without thinking, without thought. But as a youth, I became more aware of the world, how big it was, and how much I didn't know. In the beginning, I deferred to external powers. I deferred to my parents, to authorities, and obeyed the rules. Later, I ignored them because I felt I didn't need them anymore. I had outgrown them, or so I thought. I think we all go through this at some point. I had discovered the invincibility of youth, that it answered to nothing and no one else other than itself. I chose to act for myself, and guess what? The world resisted. Bright ideas and dreams are the idealism of youth. Ideas are pure thought, and they bring delight. I was fascinated with them. From this idealistic viewpoint, earthly things faded away and became less important. Instead of being an unthinking participant, I became an observer, a watcher. I began to draw back, live in my head. I tried to understand things by observing them, and to confuse things even more, I discovered I had a conscience. I successfully defied external authority, but I couldn't hide from myself, from my heart. As a youth, I found that I couldn't hide from my thoughts and my conscience. But thoughts are not the real thing, and as a youth, it was very easy to confuse my dream girlfriend and who she really was as a person. I idealized her, put her on a pedestal, and made her something that she wasn't. It's a recipe for disaster, by the way, and it happened. I did the same thing with glorious ideas like truth, freedom, justice, and equality. The idealism of youth, right? Get the young people. Old people are too smart, too pragmatic. And once more, I found myself kneeling before these external powers, offering myself as a sacrifice. I felt empty inside and not worthy of them, not worthy of these glorious ideas. And once more, I had to learn the hard way that these lofty thoughts and ideals were abstract things that didn't really belong to me. They were just ideals. They were just thoughts. They were just the real thing. Isn't that the truth? Now, my dad used to talk about the person that was so heavenly bound they were no earthly good. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. But we're talking about ideas. We're not talking about spirituality. It could just as easily be spirituality. But what the main thing is, how pervasive. We're asked to live in our heads. We're asked to live for external ideas. We're asked to obey external authorities. The thing is, we are more than ideas. We're more than mental intelligences or awarenesses. We have emotions. We have feelings. We have physical senses. We have physical bodies, and we have physical needs. It seems obvious that a successful life needs to integrate these things and not put one of them above the other. The wisdom of the past says that the way to do this is through the heart. The heart is able to tap in to all the others as a master control center, if you will. The head is too removed. It's too easy to live in your head and not live in the real world. I've done it most of my, well, shouldn't say most now, but at least half of my life. Totally ignoring a lot of my physical and emotional well-being for pursuing single-mindedly non-physical goals. And I've paid the price. I've paid the price in my personal life. I've paid the price in relationships. Because I can tell you, a relationship doesn't work very well when you're living in your head, because your partner requires more of you than just what your head can give, what a mental sharing of ideas. But the main thing we're talking about here is ideas, and the shift from being a child to becoming a youth. This is a natural process. It happens in nature. The child lives in the present moment. He or she experiences the present moment in its entirety, with all the sensations available to it. The emotions, the textures, the smells, the sounds, the colors, you name it. The thing that limits a child has not developed their cognitive ability and their ability to discern. The child has the ability to submerge itself in the present moment, to submerge itself completely and just let things flow as they will, to let things happen. But they don't really have the ability to direct what happens. This is what begins to happen naturally as a person becomes more of a teenager and develops the mental facilities, develops logic and reason, develops reasoning abilities, if you will, so that what it means is they have to step back a little bit. We normally step back from life so we can observe it impartially, observe it without that much emotion. And all too often, we get sucked right back in. But there are those who, like myself in my life, experience such a traumatic event that we actually split and lived entirely in our heads. For me, this happened when I was in high school. In my first year out of high school, I fell in love with this girl, and I thought she was the most wonderful thing in the world. And I was in love with the idea of being in love, and I didn't really listen to her. I didn't really understand her. And I sucked at relationships. I didn't have a good family background that would show me the proper ways of doing relationships. Yeah, I ended up this happened at a crisis point in my life where there were some other family issues and spiritual issues that all came to a crisis point at the same time. I actually had a nervous breakdown. And when I had a nervous breakdown, my emotional self just kind of fell away. That was my heart. And I turned to my head. Now, luckily, I was reading Rosicrucian monographs. I had become a student of the Rosicrucian path. And over the years of living in my head, I had weekly messages, weekly insights, weekly teachings that kept me from going astray, if you will. So even though I was in my head, I was in good hands. And gradually, over time, I learned to come back to my heart. And I can tell you, if you're living in your heart, if you have the capability of living in your heart, don't lose it, because it's hard to get it back once you've lost it. And living in your head ultimately doesn't bring you much of satisfaction in life. And your ability to share with other people is not that great either. It's the heart that is the center. It's the heart where the still small voice of conscience resides, and it's the heart where the divine Christ Spirit resides in everybody. If you listen to it, and if you can reach out to it in other people. I see that I'm running out of time for this video, but these are my thoughts for today. Pass this video along to others, and think about becoming a patron if you're enjoying these, if you're finding value, because I'm passing on teachings, I'm passing on concepts that I've learned over the years, and I believe they're valuable today for personal empowerment and the development of the soul. Otherwise, I would not be doing this. Take care.